Welcome back, everyone. The Biden administration launched their first plan this week as part of their policy on tackling climate change. The new rule that was proposed on Wednesday will cut carbon emissions from government buildings beginning as soon as 2025. According to the Department of Energy, federal buildings will be required to reduce on-site fossil fuel consumption by 90%. That includes eliminating natural gas for heat and other uses in the middle of winter. Because it's the government, and of course they did that. Proponents say this rule is key in achieving Biden's goal of net zero emissions in all federal buildings by 2045 and a net zero economy by 2050. Natural gas trade groups say this is impractical given the role fossil fuels play in our electric grid, of course. But the White House unfortunately does not care about any of that. They don't care about common sense. They just want to cut emissions as soon as possible. Just listen to Biden's top economic advisor, Brian Deese.
We need to rapidly hit our climate goals, including a 50% reduction in emissions by 2030. As you do that, you still see a reliance and you still see a maintenance, for example, of oil in the energy mix. That's something that will be true for the next several years. But the real opportunity here, and I hear this from companies across the board, the real opportunity here is to now move as quickly as possible to develop and to expand and to scale these new zero carbon technologies.
Mark Morano joins me now to discuss. He's the founder of the Climate Depot and author of The Great Reset. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. It's always great to have you on the show. So, Biden's new climate rule pledges to cut government building emissions by about 90%. That's a pretty hefty goal. Your thoughts?
Well, I think this is actually one thing we should wholeheartedly support President Biden on doing. He's talking of eliminating fossil fuels in federal buildings and new construction, renovation, and existing buildings, and it's going to get increasingly difficult. What this means is this is the first conservative thing Joe Biden has done. He is taking a blow to make federal workers live in a net zero world. That means when August heat waves hit, and air conditioning isn't going to be sufficient, powered by solar and wind and renewable, bureaucrats aren't going to have time or be too uncomfortable to think of even more regulations. And this is, again, in the winter when it's too cold, there'll probably be a lot of people calling in sick. A less efficient bureaucracy is what we actually want in Washington. And I can't think of anything more distasteful or unpleasant to impose on federal bureaucrats than working in miserably powered buildings by energy that can't possibly power them.
Well, that's a pretty good insight, Mark. I guess there is a silver lining. I guess a broken clock is right twice a day.
That's right.
Now, there's also a report out. There's a report out that House Democrats, there was supposed to be this big oil hearing. House Democrats, everyone was
Yes.
all excited about it, crackdown on big oil. However, Elon Musk was scheduled to make an appearance at this hearing, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Democrats abruptly canceled the hearing. Mark, were they scared of Elon Musk? Was there something going on behind the scenes? What's this about?
Yeah, this is the old canard, if you will, of the old Exxon knew, big oil, they distorted the science. Utter and complete nonsense. In the 1970s, when they claimed big oil knew, and I'm not a spokesman for big oil, don't get money from big oil, could care less about big oil because they've sold out to the climate activists. In the 1970s, scientists were worried about man-made global cooling. So anyway, this hearing is implying that somehow big oil suppressed science, and they're continuing to do it today with misinformation on big tech. So the Democrats wanted to have all the major big tech players in and talk about misinformation and how climate denial is rife everywhere. The problem is the Twitter file release, and they knew this hearing was going to be turned into how the Democratic Party and big tech colluded to violate our First Amendment rights. In other words, in a very simple phrase, Addison, big tech censorship is government censorship, is a violation of our First Amendment rights. There is no way Ro Khanna and these Democrats were going to allow Elon Musk within 10 miles of that hearing building on Capitol Hill. So this hearing the plug was pulled immediately.
Yeah, of course. And I've got to say, I just love the idea of Democrats like Ro Khanna, these just disgusting people, to be quite frank. I love the idea of Elon Musk, just his very presence causing them
Yes.
to tuck their tail between the legs and take a hike. It's so great I wish we had security footage we could get a hold of them just
Yes.
fleeing to their offices. It's great stuff. One more thing I want to get to, Mark.
Sure.
John Kerry, the climate czar, right? The guy who flies around on private jets, you know, emitting more carbon emissions than you and I will in our whole life combined. Here he is talking about using more taxpayer money for climate reparations. Wouldn't that just be grand?
So back on the loss and damage fund, though, I mean, is there going to have to be U.S. taxpayer money that helps the United States? Presumably the United States is going to have to be one of the nations that contributes to
Well, it'd be great if there were some. I mean, the United States of America proudly is the largest humanitarian donor in the world. The American people already do an enormous amount around the world.
Yes.
Your reaction to that, Mark? We got about 30 seconds.
Oh, there's so many things wrong with that. First of all, he's right. The U.S. has been a great purveyor of humanitarian aid. But here's what we don't need. We don't need money to be funneled to the United Nations so they can skim off whatever they need to. And we don't need a climate reparations fund because our SUVs and thermostats and modern way of living did not cause bad weather in the developing world in Africa and South America. In fact, bad weather has been less extreme on climate timescales, and the death toll from climate-related deaths has dropped 99% in 100 years. If anything, we should be getting a refund on all the investments because they've been spectacular. Fossil fuels have made us safe from bad weather, and that's what we should be encouraging, not limiting development and doing handouts through the United Nations Climate Reparations Fund. It is wrong on so many levels, Addison.
Yeah. Mark Morano, always great to have you on the show. Appreciate your insight for our audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Addison. Appreciate it.